Sam Brennan's horse smelled the snake before he did. The mare's nostrils flared, ears pinned flat as she sidestepped near the arroyo's edge. He dismounted slow, boots crunching on sun-baked clay, and heard it, a sound like dry beans shaking in a tin can. The rattlesnake coiled 6 feet from a woman's body. She lay crumpled beside the sacred spring, one hand clutching a beaded pouch, the other gripping her calf where 2 puncture wounds wept dark blood. Her skin had already turned the color of a week-old bruise. She wasn't breathing right, shallow, fast, like a dog in August heat. The snake struck at his boot as he knelt, missed by 2 inches. He kicked it away, hard, and it slithered into the rocks. Her pulse fluttered under his fingers, 30 beats, maybe 40. He had 30 minutes to save her, maybe less. He tore a strip from his shirt, the cotton smelling of sweat and dust and 2 years of loneliness. The lancet in his saddlebag felt like 10 pounds of iron and sin. Sam tied the tourniquet above the wound, tight enough to hurt, loose enough to let blood flow. His hands knew the work. He'd doctored horses for 20 years, cut abscesses, drained infection, pulled arrowheads from flanks. But never from a person, never from a woman whose people had been driven from this very spring 3 summers back. He uncorked his canteen and poured whiskey over the lancet blade. The steel caught the morning light, thin and cruel. His late wife's voice whispered in his memory, soft as wind through cottonwoods. If the venom stays, the body dies. You have to cut, Samuel. You have to draw it out. He made 2 quick incisions across the fang marks. Blood welled up, black at the edges. He bent low, pressed his mouth to her leg, and sucked hard. The taste hit him like a fist, copper and bitterness, and something that made his tongue go numb. He spat into the dirt, sucked again, spat again, 6 times, 8, his lips burned. Her body jerked. A sound came from her throat, half gasp, half sob. Then her eyes opened. Dark eyes, fever bright, staring straight at his face. Her lips moved. Words in Apache, too fast and broken for him to catch. Then one word in English, whispered like a prayer. Yarrow. He blinked. What? Yarrow. Ash. Cold water. Her hand trembled toward the beaded pouch still clutched in her fingers. Inside. Sam's heart kicked against his ribs. He knew that word. Yarrow. His wife had written it in the margins of her recipe book, next to drawings of feathery leaves and tiny white flowers. Para fiebre, for fever. Tia's remedy. He opened the pouch with shaking hands. Inside, a bundle of dried herbs tied with sinew, a folded paper, and something else that caught the light. Turquoise beads woven in a diamond pattern. The same pattern his wife had stitched into the blanket on their bed. He crushed the yarrow between his palms, added ash from last night's fire, mixed it with cold spring water until it became a gray paste. The smell was sharp, green, alive. He spread it over the wound, and she hissed through her teeth but didn't pull away. "Who are you?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "Naye." "How do you know about yarrow? How do you—" "Your wife." Her voice cracked. "She taught me. In the dream." The words hit him like a runaway horse. His wife had been dead 2 years. 2 years of eating supper alone. 2 years of sleeping on one side of the bed. 2 years of keeping his head down when people in town whispered "Injun lover" behind his back. He'd buried her name along with her body, let folks think she was Mexican, let them forget she'd been born under an Apache sky. "What dream?" His voice came out rough, but Naye's eyes had closed. Her breathing evened out, deep and slow. The paste on her leg had already started to dry, pulling the swelling down. He sat back on his heels and looked at the beaded pouch in his hands. The pattern wasn't just similar to his wife's work. It was identical. Same colors, same stitch count, same tiny flaw in the bottom left corner where she'd always run out of red thread and switched to orange. Impossible. Unless... Hoofbeats on the ridge above. Sam's head snapped up. A rider sat silhouetted against the brightening sky, maybe 200 yards out, watching through a spyglass. The man wore a brown hat and a duster that hung too long on his short frame. Murphy, the nosiest rancher in 3 counties. Sam stood slow, positioning his body between Murphy and the woman. The rider held the spyglass steady for another 5 seconds, then lowered it. Even from this distance, Sam could see the shake of his head, the kind of shake that said, "You damn fool." Murphy turned his horse and rode back toward town at a gallop. Sam had maybe 2 hours before the whole territory knew he'd pulled an Apache woman out of the arroyo. Maybe 3 before someone showed up with a rifle and a federal warrant. He looked down at Naye. Her chest rose and fell, steady now. The gray paste had stopped the bleeding. Her color was still bad, too pale under the brown, but she wasn't dying. Not anymore. He couldn't leave her here. Coyotes ran these hills. Worse than coyotes, too. Men who collected bounties on Apache scalps didn't ask questions about women or children or whether they were armed. Sam slid his arms under her knees and shoulders, lifted her like she weighed nothing. She didn't wake. The beaded pouch fell from her hand and he caught it, shoved it in his pocket. His horse snorted, nervous as he laid Naye across the saddle. The mare didn't like the smell of blood, didn't like the smell of strangers, but she held steady while he mounted up behind, one arm wrapped around the woman to keep her from sliding. The sun climbed higher, vultures circled overhead, black dots against the copper sky. Murphy would reach town in an hour, word would spread like fire in dry grass, and Sam Brennan had just chosen which side of the law he'd die on. The ride back to the cabin took 40 minutes. Every time Naye's head lolled against his chest, Sam checked her pulse. Still there, still steady. The paste had crusted over, sealing the wound. His wife's remedy. A remedy she'd learned from her aunt, written in the margins of a recipe book he hadn't opened in 2 years. The cabin sat in a shallow valley, where the land flattened out between two mesas. His windmill rose against the sky, blades turning slow in the morning breeze, too slow. The gears had been grinding for weeks, making a sound like teeth on bone. He'd meant to ride into town for parts, but the blacksmith wanted cash up front and Sam's pockets were empty until the fall cattle sale. He dismounted carefully, eased Naye down, and carried her inside. The cabin smelled like old smoke and older memories. He laid her on his bed, the only bed, and pulled the blanket up to her chin, the blanket with the diamond pattern in turquoise and red. Her fingers found the edge of it, even in sleep, and held on. Sam stood in the doorway, watching her breathe, and wondered what the hell he'd just done. Outside, his horse whinnied, not the nervous whinny from before, the alarm whinny. He stepped onto the porch and saw them coming up the trail, 2 riders, moving fast, one on a gray mare, one on a bay gelding. The gray's rider wore a black coat that hung open despite the heat. The bay's rider was thick through the shoulders, sitting his saddle like a sack of grain. Hiram Ketchum and Sheriff Dobbs. Sam's jaw tightened. He walked down the steps, slow and deliberate, and stood in the yard with his thumbs hooked in his belt. The sun beat down on the back of his neck. Sweat trickled between his shoulder blades. Ketchum reined up 10 feet away. The man's face was narrow and red from the ride. His mustache waxed to sharp points that didn't move when he smiled. "Morning, Brennan." "Ketchum." Sam didn't look at the sheriff. "Little early for a social call. Heard you picked up a stray this morning." Ketchum leaned forward in his saddle, leather creaking. "Apache woman, word is. Found her on my land." "Your land?" Sam kept his voice flat. "Last I checked, this spring belonged to my claim. Proved it 3 years ago." Ketchum reached into his coat and pulled out a rolled paper tied with string. He untied it slow, making a show of it, and held it up. The paper was thick, official-looking, with a red wax seal at the bottom. "Territory land deed," Ketchum said. "Dated April 14th, 1871. Signed by Surveyor General Mills. Names me legal owner of Section 12, which includes that spring and everything around it for half a mile." He smiled wider. "Including the ground your cabin's sitting on." The world tilted. Sam's hands curled into fists. "That's a damn lie." "It's the law." Ketchum nodded to Sheriff Dobbs. "Show him." Dobbs rode closer, a big man with a gray beard and tired eyes. He leaned down and held out the deed. Sam took it, unrolled it, and read. The words swam in front of him. Legal language, surveyor marks, boundary descriptions. And there at the bottom, the signature of a man Sam had met once, years ago, when he'd filed his own claim. The ink smelled fresh, too fresh, like it had been written yesterday, not 3 years ago. "This is forged," Sam said. Ketchum's smile didn't waver. "That's a serious accusation. You got proof?" "I got my own deed, filed and registered." "Not for the spring, you don't. You filed for the cabin and the grazing land. Spring's outside your boundary by 50 yards. Ketchum folded his hands over his saddle horn. "I checked." Sam's mind raced. He'd never measured the spring, never thought he needed to. It had always been there, always been his, or rather, it had belonged to his wife's people before the territory pushed them out. She'd told him once that her grandmother had been born beside that water, under an August moon. Sheriff Dobbs cleared his throat. "Sam, I gotta ask, you got a hostile inside?" "She's not hostile. She's half dead from a snake bite." "Apache?" Sam didn't answer. Dobbs sighed. "Federal law says harboring Apache off-reservation is a criminal offense. You know that." "She was dying. Law doesn't care." The sheriff's voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "You got 30 days to prove improvements on this land, per the Homestead Act. But if Ketchum's deed stands, you don't own it, which means you got no claim, which means he trailed off, which means he's trespassing, Ketchum finished. With a hostel. That's 2 violations, Sheriff. You planning to enforce the law? Or do I need to ride to Tucson and file a complaint? Dobbs looked at Sam for a long moment. Then he looked away. Ketchum leaned back in his saddle, satisfied. Thought you'd want to know, Brennan. Someone broke into my brother's blacksmith shop last night. Stripped the gears right off your windmill order. Cyrus is mighty upset. Says you owe him $200 for the parts, plus another $50 for the damage. Wants payment by sundown, or he takes your tools as collateral. $200. Sam didn't have 20. You got till the end of the month to vacate, Ketchum said. He rolled up the deed, tied it, and tucked it back in his coat. After that, I'll have the sheriff remove you. And that woman? She goes to the territorial marshal. They got a cell in Tucson for renegades. He turned his horse. Sheriff Dobbs followed. Sam stood in the yard and watched them ride away, dust rising behind them like smoke. The windmill groaned, blades grinding slower now, almost stopped. Inside the cabin, Naye was still sleeping, and the clock had just started ticking. Sam stood in the doorway of his cabin, staring at the shelf above the stove. The recipe book sat there, spine cracked, pages yellowed with age and smoke. He hadn't touched it since the funeral. Couldn't. Every time he looked at it, he saw her hands, small, careful hands that could stitch a wound or write a letter or braid their daughter's hair before the fever took her too. But now he had no choice. He crossed the room, pulled the book down, and opened it. The smell hit him first. Dried lavender she'd pressed between the pages, mixed with ink and old paper. Her handwriting filled the margins, notes scrawled in English and Spanish and sometimes Apache, words he'd never learned to read. Page after page of recipes, cornbread, venison stew, apple preserves, and in the margins, other recipes, remedies, para fiebre, hierro plus ceniza plus agua fria. Tia taught me this. Works when nothing else will. For infection, honey plus crushed sage. Pack the wound, change twice daily, snake bite, cut and draw, then yarrow ash paste, keep cold, pray. His throat tightened. She'd written this for him, all of it, knowing he'd need it someday, even if she wasn't there to teach him herself. He turned to the last page. One sentence, written in careful script. If they come for our people, you'll know what to do. Te amo. M. The book trembled in his hands. He set it down on the table, pressed his palms flat against the wood, and breathed. Behind him, fabric rustled. He turned. Naye sat up in bed, moving slow, one hand pressed to her wounded leg. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were clear. She looked at him, then at the book on the table, then back at him. She knew, Naye said quietly. Knew what? That I would come. She touched the blanket, fingers tracing the diamond pattern. She made this, and the pouch. She sent me here. She's been dead 2 years. I know. Naye swung her legs over the side of the bed, wincing. I saw her 3 moons ago, in a dream. She said her husband would need help when the thief came for the water. She looked at him. You are Samuel. Kind eyes. That is what she called you. Sam's chest felt tight. Kind eyes. That had been Maria's name for him, whispered in the dark, laughed over morning coffee. No one else had ever called him that. How? His voice cracked. How could you know? Naye reached into her dress and pulled out the beaded pouch. She opened it, removed the dried herbs, and then pulled out a folded paper, brittle with age. She held it out to him. Sam took it, unfolded it carefully. It was a map, hand-drawn in faded ink, showing the territory boundaries as they'd been drawn in 1863. Rivers, mesas, springs. And there, a small X marked the sacred spring with words written in careful English, Apache Trust Land, water rights in perpetuity. Signed Governor Goodwin, Treaty of Santa Fe, June 1863. Sam stared at it. This is proof, Naye said. The spring belongs to my people. Always has. Your land deed says the same thing, if you read it right. Your wife knew. She wrote it in her will. I don't have her will. Yes, you do. Naye pointed to the recipe book. Last page. Turn it over. Sam flipped the book closed, turned it over. The back cover was leather, hand-stitched. He'd never noticed before, but there was a pocket sewn into the inside, hidden, invisible, unless you knew to look. He slid his fingers inside and pulled out a folded paper, newer than the map, written in Maria's handwriting, last will and testament of Maria Brennan, née Maria Helona. I leave to my husband Samuel all property and possessions, including the homestead on Section 12, with the understanding that the sacred spring shall be shared with my people in perpetuity, as was promised by treaty and by blood. It was dated 6 months before she died, signed, witnessed by 2 names he didn't recognize. She knew Ketchum would come, Naye said softly. She saw it, not in a dream, in life. He tried to buy the land from her once, before you married. She refused. He never forgot. Sam's hands shook. Why didn't she tell me? Because you were afraid. Naye's voice was gentle, not accusing. Afraid of losing the land. Afraid of what people would say. She loved you, so she stayed quiet. But she prepared. She touched the pouch. She sent me these things, the map, the seeds from our old land, and a message. What message? Naye met his eyes. That when the time came, you would choose right. Not law, not land, but life. Outside, a horse whinnied. Sam's head snapped toward the window. Through the dusty glass, he saw a rider approaching, not from the direction of town, but from the east. An old man on a sway-backed mule, wearing a black suit and carrying a doctor's bag. Doc Maynard. Sam's stomach dropped. Doc never came out here. Not since Maria died. Not since Sam had asked him to save her, and Doc had said there was nothing to be done. The fever was too far gone. She was already... The old man dismounted, slow and stiff, and tied his mule to the porch rail. He stood there for a moment, hat in his hands, staring at the cabin door. Then he knocked. Sam crossed the room and opened the door. Doc Maynard looked older than he remembered, 70 if he was a day, with liver spots on his hands and a tremor in his fingers. Sam, the old man said. His voice was rough, like he'd been shouting, or crying. Doc, I heard you got a woman in there. Apache, snake bit. I do. Doc Maynard looked past him, saw Naye sitting on the bed, and his face went white as ash. Sweet, merciful God, he whispered. She looks just like her. Sam stepped aside. Doc Maynard walked past him, moving like a man in a dream, and stopped 3 feet from the bed. He stared at Naye. She stared back. You have her eyes, Doc said. Maria's eyes. I never met Maria, Naye said quietly. Only in the dream. Doc's bag slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a thud. I need to sit down. Sam pulled out a chair. The old man sank into it, breathing hard. His face had gone gray. Doc, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's wrong. Doc pressed his palms to his eyes. I came here to tell you no, to say I wouldn't help, to say you were a fool for harboring a hostile and I wouldn't risk my license for you or anyone. He lowered his hands. But I saw her through the window, and I... His voice broke. Sam crouched beside the chair. Doc, talk to me. The old man looked at him. His eyes were wet. Maria was my niece, Sam, my sister's daughter. I watched her grow up, taught her to read, gave her my medical books when she said she wanted to be a healer. He swallowed hard. And when she married you, a white man, a soldier's son, I told her she was dead to me. Told her she'd betrayed her people. I didn't go to her wedding. Didn't visit when your little girl was born. Didn't come when the fever took them both. The room went silent. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Sam's voice came out flat. You're her uncle. Was. I gave up that right. Doc stared at his hands. She wrote me letters. 10, maybe 12. Begged me to come see her, to meet you, to hold her daughter. I burned everyone. He looked up at Sam, and the grief in his face was bottomless. And then she was gone, and I couldn't take it back. Sam stood. His legs felt unsteady. All those years Maria had talked about her family like they were ghosts, gone, disappeared. He'd never pushed, never asked. He'd thought they'd died or moved away or simply wanted nothing to do with a woman who'd married outside the tribe. He'd never imagined they'd been right there, one town over, close enough to visit, close enough to save her. Get out, Sam said. Doc flinched. Sam, you let her die alone. You let my daughter die. And now you come here to tell me you won't help another woman because you're afraid of losing your goddamn license? Sam's voice rose. Get out of my house. I came to help. 2 years too late. I know. Doc stood, slow and shaking. I know I can't fix what I did. I know she's gone, and it's my fault, and I'll carry that till I'm in the ground beside her. But she wouldn't want me to turn away now. She wouldn't want you to face this alone. I am alone, Sam said. You made sure of that. Doc picked up his bag. He walked to the door, stopped, and turned back. That woman in your bed, Naye, she's not sick anymore. You did that. You used Maria's medicine, the yarrow ash paste. You remembered. Maria wrote it down. She taught you, Doc said. Maybe not with words, maybe not before she died, but she taught you. That's what healers do. We pass it on. He opened the door. Sunlight poured in, too bright. When Ketchum comes back, and he will, you're going to need someone who can testify that what you did was medicine, not witchcraft. Someone with a license. Someone the law might actually listen to. Why would you risk that for me? Doc's jaw tightened. Because Maria asked me to. In the last letter, the one I burned. He looked at Naye. She said if trouble ever came to you, I was to teach you what I should have taught you years ago. She said you'd need it. She said you'd be ready. His voice dropped. I didn't believe her, but she was right. He stepped onto the porch. Doc, Sam said. The old man stopped. If you walk away now, don't come back. Doc Maynard stood there for a long moment, his back to the cabin, shoulders hunched. Then he turned around. His face was hard, carved from stone and regret. I'm not walking away, he said. Not this time. The sun climbed higher, Sam made coffee, bitter and strong, and the three of them sat at the table in silence. Naye drank hers slow, watching the two men with dark, careful eyes. Finally, Doc spoke. Tell me about Ketchum's deed. Sam pulled it from his pocket, the rolled paper the sheriff had handed him, and spread it on the table. Doc put on his spectacles and leaned close, reading every word. His finger traced the signature, the seal, the date. April 14th, 71, he muttered. 3 years ago. He lifted the paper, held it to the light from the window, and sniffed it. What are you doing? Sam asked. Checking the ink. Doc set the paper down. I treated a clerk in Tucson last year. Man had ink poisoning from working in the records office. Told me all about how they switched ink suppliers in 73. Old ink was gum arabic base. New ink is lanolin base. Sheep fat mixed with lamp black. Keeps it from freezing when they ship it by rail in winter. And he tapped the deed. This smells like lanolin. Sam leaned forward. So? So if this deed was really written in 71, it should smell like gum arabic. Smells like tree sap. Kind of sweet. This smells like mutton. Doc looked at him over his spectacles. Your deed is forged, Sam. Recently. I'd bet my license on it. Hope flared in Sam's chest, bright and dangerous. Can you prove it? Not me, but I know someone who can. Emma Hartley. Used to be Maria's student when she taught school. Girl's got a head for chemistry. Works at the general store now, but she remembers everything Maria taught her. Doc folded the deed carefully. If we can get her to test this ink, compare it to a real 71 document, we might have something. Might, Sam said. That's not enough to stop Ketchum. No, Doc agreed, but it's a start. Naye reached across the table and placed her hand over Sam's. Her skin was warm now, fever gone. The map, she said. Show him the map. Sam pulled the treaty map from Maria's recipe book and unfolded it. Doc stared at it, eyes widening. Is this? 1863, Naye said. Signed by Governor Goodwin. The spring is Apache trust land. Protected by federal treaty. Ketchum cannot own it. No one can. Doc whistled low. If this is real, it is real, Naye said. It is the last copy. The federal records burned in the fire of 72. This is all that remains. Doc looked at Sam. You know what this means? It means we have a fight. It means you have a chance. Doc stood, tucked the forged deed into his bag. I'll take this to Emma, see what she can tell us. You stay here. Keep Naye out of sight. If Ketchum finds out she's got that map. The sound of hoofbeats cut him off. Multiple horses coming fast. Sam crossed to the window. His blood went cold. 8 riders. Sheriff Dobbs in front, Ketchum beside him. And behind them, 6 men Sam didn't recognize, wearing dusty coats and carrying rifles across their saddles. Bounty hunters, Doc swore under his breath. They're not here to talk. Sam turned to Naye. Under the bed, now. She didn't argue. She slid off the chair and crawled beneath the bed frame, pulling the blanket down to hide herself. Sam shoved the treaty map and Maria's will into Doc's bag. Get out the back, he told the old man. Take these to Emma. Tell her, I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Sam's voice was iron. Because if they arrest me, you're the only one who can prove I'm right. Doc hesitated. Then he grabbed his bag and hurried toward the back door. The riders stopped in the yard. Sheriff Dobbs dismounted. So did Ketchum. The bounty hunters stayed on their horses, rifles ready. Dobbs walked to the porch. Sam Brennan, I'm here to serve a warrant. Come on out. Sam opened the door and stepped into the sunlight, hands at his sides. Ketchum smiled. Told you he'd make this easy. Sheriff Dobbs pulled a paper from his coat pocket. His hand shook slightly as he unfolded it. Samuel Brennan, you're charged with harboring a hostile Apache off-reservation, trespassing on claimed land, and obstructing a federal land deed. You'll come with me to town, stand before the territorial judge. Where's the woman? Ketchum interrupted. He stepped onto the porch, boots heavy on the wood. I know she's in there. Sam didn't move. She left. That's so. Ketchum pushed past him, shouldered through the doorway. Sam's fists clenched, but he held still. The bounty hunter's rifles were aimed at his chest. Inside, Ketchum tore through the cabin, kicked over chairs, threw open the cupboard, ripped the blankets off the bed. Sam heard him cursing, heard the crash of his coffee pot hitting the floor. Ketchum emerged a minute later, face red. Where is she? Told you, she left. On foot? With a snake bite? Ketchum's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Prove it. Ketchum turned to the bounty hunters. Search the property. Barn, outhouse, root cellar. She's here somewhere. 3 men dismounted and spread out. Sam watched them go, his jaw tight. Under the bed, Naye was hidden behind the frame and the rumpled blanket Ketchum had thrown on the floor. But if they came back with dogs, if they searched more carefully, Sheriff Dobbs cleared his throat. Mr. Ketchum, the warrant's for Brennan, not the woman. She's a fugitive. She's not named in the warrant. Then I'll file another one, soon as we're back in town. Ketchum stepped close to Sam, close enough that Sam could smell tobacco and sweat. You think you're clever, Brennan? Hiding her, playing hero, all you did was make it worse. For her and for you, he smiled. Judge will give you 60 days in jail, maybe more. And when you get out, this land will be mine, legal and proper. You'll have nothing. Sam met his eyes. I'd rather have nothing than have it stolen. Stolen? Ketchum laughed. I got a deed that says otherwise. Deed's a forgery. The smile slipped, just for a second. Then it came back, sharper. Careful, Brennan. Slandering illegal documents a crime, too. One of the bounty hunters returned, shaking his head. Nothing in the barn, boss, just an old mule and some chickens. Ketchum's jaw worked. He stared at Sam for a long moment, then turned to Dobbs. Take him in. I want him locked up by sundown. Dobbs stepped forward, pulling iron shackles from his belt. Sam, I got to... I know. Sam held out his wrists. The metal was cold. It clicked shut, heavy and final. Dobbs wouldn't meet his eyes. Mount up, the sheriff said quietly. They led Sam to a horse, not his own, but a spare gelding one of the bounty hunters had brought. They boosted him into the saddle, hands still shackled. The sun beat down on his head. His windmill groaned in the distance, blades barely turning. Ketchum mounted his own horse, smug and satisfied. Oh, one more thing, Brennan. My brother Cyrus, he's riding out here this afternoon to collect those tools you owe him for, $200 worth. Since you won't be around to pay, he'll take what's fair. Anvil hammers, that nice set of saws, should just about cover it. Sam's throat tightened. Without tools, he couldn't work, couldn't build, couldn't fix, couldn't survive. Ketchum knew it. Move out, Dobbs said. The horses turned toward town. Sam twisted in the saddle, looking back at his cabin. The door stood open, the window caught the light, and for just a moment, so brief he almost missed it, he saw a shadow move behind the glass. Naye, still there, still hidden. Relief flooded through him, sharp and sudden. Then fear, just as sharp, because Ketchum would be back. And next time, he'd bring more men. They rode in silence for an hour. The land rolled past, red dust and scrub brush and distant mesas shimmering in the heat. Sam's wrists ached where the shackles bit. His mouth was dry. He hadn't brought water, hadn't brought anything. Halfway to town, one of the bounty hunters pulled alongside him, a lean man with a scar across his cheek and eyes like chips of flint. You really saved that Apache woman's life? Sam glanced at him. Yeah. Heard you sucked the venom out. That true? It is. The man rode in silence for a moment. Then he said, My brother died of a rattler bite 10 years ago, out in the Sonora. Wasn't nobody around to help him. He looked at Sam. What you did took guts. Sam didn't know what to say to that. The bounty hunter spurred his horse forward, back to the front of the line. They reached town just as the sun started its long slide toward the horizon. The main street was dust and wooden storefronts and a church with a crooked steeple. People stopped to stare as they rode past. Sam kept his head up, eyes forward. Let them look. The jail was a low adobe building at the end of the street. Dobbs dismounted, unlocked the door, and led Sam inside. The air was cooler here, thick with the smell of old sweat and limestone. There were 2 cells, both empty. Dobbs unlocked the first one and swung the door open. In you go. Sam stepped inside. The shackles came off. The cell door clanged shut. I'll bring you supper later, Dobbs said. He didn't sound happy about any of this. Judge'll see you in the morning. Judge is in Ketchum's pocket, Sam said. Maybe, maybe not. Dobbs hung the keys on a nail by the door. Either way, it's out of my hands now. He left. The door closed. Sam was alone. He sat on the cot, thin mattress, no pillow, and stared at the barred window. Through it, he could see a slice of sky turning gold and orange. Somewhere out there, Naye was hiding in his cabin. Doc was riding to find Emma, and Ketchum's brother was on his way to strip the place clean. Sam leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. Maria's voice whispered in his memory, soft and steady. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. He hoped to God she was right, because right now, he had no idea. Sam woke to the sound of a key turning in the lock. Gray light filtered through the window. Dawn, or close to it. He sat up, muscles stiff from the cot, and saw Sheriff Dobbs standing in the doorway with a tin plate in one hand. Breakfast, Dobbs said. He slid the plate through the slot at the bottom of the cell door. Beans and cornbread, cold. Sam didn't touch it. What time's the judge coming? 9 o'clock, maybe 10. Dobbs hesitated. Sam, listen. If you got anything to say in your defense, witnesses, papers, anything, now's the time. I got plenty to say. Question is whether anyone will listen. Dobbs looked like he wanted to say more. Instead, he just nodded and walked out. Sam ate the beans. They tasted like tin and old grease. He was chewing the last bite of cornbread when he heard voices outside, raised voices, coming from the street. He crossed to the window and looked out. A crowd was gathering near the church steps. 20 people, maybe 30. He recognized some of them. Murphy, the rancher who'd seen him at the spring. Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house. The preacher, Reverend Cale, in his black coat and white collar. And standing on the church steps, hands raised like he was blessing the crowd, was Hiram Ketchum. Sam pressed his face closer to the bars, straining to hear. "Harbor our enemies," Ketchum was saying. His voice carried, loud and righteous. "We built this town with our sweat and blood. We drove the hostiles back so our children could sleep safe at night. And now one man who married a squaw and thinks that makes him special, brings them right back to our doorstep." A few people in the crowd nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. "Samuel Brennan," Ketchum continued, is a traitor to this territory. He gave aid and comfort to an Apache woman. Hid her on land he doesn't own. Refused a lawful order to surrender her." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And worse, he's been teaching their heathen medicine, using their witchcraft. His own wife filled his head with it before she died. God rest her corrupted soul." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sam's hands tightened on the bars. "Some of you knew Maria Brennan," Ketchum said. "Some of you sent your children to her school, and I'm sure she seemed kind, seemed civilized." His voice dropped, intimate and poisonous. "But she was Apache, and she poisoned her husband's mind against his own people, against you." "That's a lie," someone said. Sam's heart jumped. He knew that voice. Murphy stepped forward from the crowd, hat in his hands. "Maria Brennan was a good woman. Taught my boy to read when no one else would. And Sam..." He looked around at the faces. "Sam's a good man. Doesn't drink, doesn't cheat, pays his debts. If he saved that woman's life, it's because it was the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Ketchum's face flushed. The law says a lot of things," Murphy interrupted. "Doesn't make 'em all right." A woman's voice cut through the tension. "I knew Maria, too." Sam pressed closer to the window. Emma Hartley stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed over her chest. She was young, maybe 25, with brown hair pulled back in a tight bun and a schoolteacher's stern expression. "Maria Brennan taught me chemistry," Emma said clearly. "Taught me to test compounds, identify elements, read scientific papers. She was smarter than half the men in this town, and kinder than all of them." She looked straight at Ketchum. "And if you're going to slander her memory, Mr. Ketchum, I suggest you get your facts straight first." Ketchum's jaw tightened. "Miss Hartley, I don't think, I also suggest," Emma continued, raising her voice, "that before you accuse Sam Brennan of trespassing, you make sure your own deed is legitimate." The crowd went silent. Ketchum's face went pale, then red. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Emma reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a folded paper. This is a copy of the Territorial Land Registry from 1871. I checked it yesterday. There's no deed filed under your name for Section 12, not in 71, not ever. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That's, Ketchum sputtered. That's a clerical error. My deed is legal and registered. Then why does the ink smell wrong? Emma unfolded another paper, the deed itself, the one Doc must have given her. She held it up. I tested this. Lanolin base ink, the kind the railway suppliers started shipping in 73. If this deed was really written in 71, it should be gum Arabic base. She looked at Ketchum. You want to explain that? The crowd erupted, voices shouting, people pushing forward, Murphy yelling something Sam couldn't hear. Reverend Cale raised his hands, calling for calm, but no one listened. Ketchum's face twisted. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a store clerk. I'm a chemist, Emma said coldly. Maria made sure of that. A hand fell on Ketchum's shoulder. He spun around and found himself face to face with Doc Maynard. The old man looked tired, his suit rumpled, but his eyes were sharp. She's right, Doc said. I checked the ink myself. Your deed's a fake, Hiram. And if you don't withdraw your claim by noon, I'm taking this evidence to the territorial marshal in Tucson. Ketchum's mouth worked. For a moment, he looked like he might swing at the old man. Then his eyes darted to the crowd, hostile now, angry, and he seemed to deflate. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Murphy said. He stepped up beside Doc, and two other ranchers followed. You lost, Ketchum. Take it like a man and get out of town. Ketchum looked at them, looked at the crowd. Then he turned and walked away, shoulders hunched, boots heavy on the boardwalk. The crowd erupted in cheers. Sam leaned his forehead against the bars and breathed. 10 minutes later, Sheriff Dobbs unlocked the cell door. You're free to go. Sam stepped out, blinking in the morning light. Just like that? Just like that. Judge reviewed Emma's evidence, declared Ketchum's deed invalid. Charges against you are dropped. Dobbs handed him his hat. You got some good people in your corner, Sam. I know. Outside, the crowd had dispersed, but Emma and Doc and Murphy were waiting by the jail door. Emma handed him a canteen. He drank deep, the water cold and sweet. Thank you, he said. Emma smiled. Maria would have done the same for me. Doc clapped him on the shoulder. Let's get you home. They walked to the horses. Sam's mare was tied there, saddled and waiting. He mounted up, and the four of them rode out of town together. The sun climbed higher, the land stretched wide and red before them, and somewhere ahead, Naye was waiting. They reached the cabin just after noon. The door stood open, swinging slightly in the breeze. Sam's stomach dropped. He dismounted fast, nearly stumbling, and ran inside. The cabin was empty, chairs overturned, the recipe book on the floor, pages scattered, his tools gone, the anvil, the hammers, the saws, everything Cyrus Ketchum had promised to take, and Naye was nowhere. Sam, Doc's voice from outside, tight with warning. Sam stepped back onto the porch. A man stood in the yard, not Cyrus, but a stranger, tall, weathered, with gray in his beard and a rifle slung across his back. He wore buckskin and a wide-brimmed hat, and his eyes were the color of stone. You Brennan? The man asked. Sam's hand dropped to his belt. No gun. They'd taken it when they arrested him. I am. The man studied him for a long moment. Then he said, Name's Cord. I was hired to track the Apache woman. Ketchum paid me $50. He shifted his weight. I found her. Sam's blood went cold. Where is she? Safe. Cord jerked his chin toward the barn. For now. He is. Sam started toward the barn, but Cord held up a hand. Wait, I got something to say first. I don't give a damn what you have to say. If you hurt her. I didn't hurt her. Cord's voice was calm, measured. I found her hiding under your bed, just like Ketchum said I would. She had a map with her. Old treaty map, 1863. Showed the spring on Apache trust land. He paused. That map's worth more than $50, Brennan. Sam's jaw tightened. So you're here to sell it? No. Cord reached into his coat and pulled out the folded map. He held it out. I'm here to give it back. Sam stared at him. Why? Because I was at Sand Creek, Cord said quietly. 1864, Chivington's massacre. I was 20 years old and I followed orders and I helped kill 200 Cheyenne, women, children, old men. His hand shook slightly, holding the map. I spent 20 years trying to forget what I did. Whiskey didn't work, neither did running. So I started tracking for money, telling myself it was just a job, just survival. He looked at Sam. But I can't do it anymore. I can't take another $50 for hunting people who've already lost everything. He pressed the map into Sam's hand. Your woman, Naye, she told me about your wife, about Maria, said Maria asked her to bring this map to you when the thief came. His voice roughened. I've taken enough from the Apache. I won't take this. Sam's throat tightened. He looked down at the map in his hands, then back at Cord. Thank you. Cord nodded once. Then he turned and walked to his horse, mounted up, and rode away without another word. Doc stepped up beside Sam. Good men are hard to find, but they're out there. Murphy spat tobacco juice into the dirt. Speaking of good men, or lack thereof, where's Cyrus? Thought he'd be here stripping the place. As if in answer, hoofbeats sounded from the trail, but it wasn't Cyrus Ketchum who appeared, it was Naye. She rode Sam's old mule, moving slow and careful, her wounded leg braced with a splint made from willow branches. Behind her, tied to the mule's saddle, were Sam's tools, all of them, anvil, hammers, saws, even the small things, chisels, files, the leather apron he'd thought was lost. Sam crossed the yard in 3 strides. Where did you— Cyrus came, Naye said. She slid down from the mule, wincing. He took everything, loaded it on his wagon, but I followed him. A small smile crossed her face. He stopped at the creek to water his horses. I waited until he walked away. Then I took the tools back. You stole them? I took what was already yours. She met his eyes. He is a thief. I am not. Murphy burst out laughing. Emma covered her mouth, trying not to smile. Even Doc chuckled, low and rough. Sam shook his head, caught between disbelief and gratitude. You could have been caught, could have been hurt worse. I was careful. Naye touched the mule's neck. Your wife taught me that too. In the dream, she said when men take what is not theirs, sometimes you must simply take it back. Sam looked at the tools, then at Naye, then at the 3 people standing in his yard who had risked their reputations and safety to help him. His chest felt too full, like something was breaking open inside it. I need to say something, he said. They all turned to look at him. Sam took a breath. When Maria died, I buried more than her body. I buried her name, her people, her language, everything she was. His voice shook. I told myself it was to protect the land, to protect what we'd built together, but the truth is, I was ashamed. Ashamed of what people would say. Ashamed of being seen with her. He looked at Doc. You weren't the only one who failed her. Doc's eyes were wet. I kept her quiet, Sam continued. Kept her hidden. Even after she was gone, I never spoke her full name. Never told anyone she was Apache. Never honored the treaty rights she tried to teach me about. He held up the map. She knew this land belonged to her people. She knew Ketchum would come for it someday, and she prepared. She left me everything I needed to fight back. The map, the will, the medicine, the knowledge. His voice broke. But I was too much of a coward to use it. You're using it now, Emma said softly. Because I didn't have a choice. Because I was backed into a corner. Sam looked at each of them in turn. But Maria deserved better than that. She deserved a husband who stood up for her while she was alive, who protected her people's rights, who wasn't afraid to be seen with her. He swallowed hard. I can't fix that now, but I can do what she asked me to do. I can make sure her voice is heard. He turned to Naye. The spring belongs to your people. The treaty says so. Maria's will says so, and I'm going to make sure it stays that way. Legal, registered, protected. No matter what Ketchum or anyone else tries to do. Naye's eyes shone. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm, calloused, alive. She forgave you, Naye said quietly. Before she died, she told me in the dream. She said, tell Samuel his eyes were always kind, even when he was afraid. She squeezed his hand. She loved you. That is all that matters. Sam's vision blurred. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Doc cleared his throat. Well, if we're making confessions. He stepped forward, hat in his hands. I failed Maria when she was alive. Turned my back on her because I was a bitter old fool who thought blood mattered more than love. I can't undo that, but I can help you finish what she started. He looked at Sam. I'll testify before the territorial court. I'll swear that the spring is Apache trust land, protected by treaty. I'll stake my medical license on it if I have to. You'll lose your license, Sam said. Maybe, maybe not, Doc's jaw set. Either way, it's the right thing to do. Maria taught me that. Took me 2 years to remember. Murphy spat again. Hell, if we're all being noble, count me in. I'll round up the other ranchers. Get him to sign a petition supporting the treaty claim. Ketchum's got enemies, more than he knows. Emma folded her arms. And I'll file a formal complaint with the territorial surveyor, get Hiram's forged deed entered into the record as fraudulent, make sure he can never try this again. Sam looked at them. These people who barely knew him, who had nothing to gain and everything to lose, these people Maria had touched years ago with her teaching and her kindness and her quiet strength. She hadn't just prepared him. She'd prepared them, too. Thank you, he said. It felt like too small a thing to say, but it was all he had. Doc clapped him on the shoulder. Come on, let's get these tools back where they belong, and then... He glanced at Naye. I think we need to plan our next move, because Ketchum's down, but he's not finished. Men like him never are. They walked toward the barn together. The sun was high now, burning hot and clean. The windmill groaned, blades turning slow but steady. And inside the cabin, on the table where Sam had left it, Maria's recipe book lay open to the last page. If they come for our people, you'll know what to do. He knew now. The territorial land office smelled like dust and old paper and the sweat of nervous men. Sam stood at the front of the room, hands steady now, the treaty map spread on the clerk's desk. Behind him, Doc and Murphy and Emma waited. Naye sat near the back, her legs still splinted, her dark eyes watching everything. The room was packed. Word had spread. Ranchers, townspeople, shopkeepers, they'd all come to see what would happen when a man challenged Hiram Ketchum's claim. Ketchum himself sat in the front row, his lawyer beside him. A thin man with wire spectacles and a briefcase full of papers. They looked confident, too confident. The territorial clerk, a tired-looking man named Hastings with ink stains on his fingers, cleared his throat. This hearing is called to order. Case of Ketchum versus Brennan, regarding ownership of Section 12, Parcel 43, including the natural spring therein. He glanced at Sam. Mr. Brennan, you've challenged Mr. Ketchum's deed. State your case. Sam stepped forward. His mouth was dry, but his voice came out clear. Mr. Ketchum's deed is a forgery. The ink is wrong, the date is wrong, and the land he claims was never his to take. It belongs to the Apache people, protected by federal treaty since 1863. Murmurs ran through the room. Ketchum's lawyer stood. Your Honor, I'm not a judge, Hastings said. I'm a clerk, but go ahead. The lawyer straightened his spectacles. Mr. Brennan's accusations are slanderous and baseless. My client's deed was properly filed and registered. The fact that Mr. Brennan disputes, it does not make it invalid. Then you won't mind if we examine it, Emma said from behind Sam. The lawyer frowned. Who are you? Emma Hartley, chemist, and I've already examined your client's deed. She stepped forward, holding a sheet of paper covered in neat handwriting. The ink used is lanolin base manufactured by the Union Pacific Railway Supply Company. They didn't start producing that formula until April of 1873. She looked at the lawyer. Your deed is dated April of 1871, 2 years before the ink existed. The room erupted, people shouting, chairs scraping, Hastings banging his hand on the desk for quiet. That's circumstantial, the lawyer sputtered. Ink formulas can vary. Not by 2 years, Emma said calmly. I have the railway invoices. I have the chemical analysis. And I have testimony from 3 ink suppliers in Tucson who all confirm the same thing. She set the paper on the desk. Your client's deed is a fraud. Ketchum's face had gone pale. He leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer. The lawyer shook his head, whispered back. Ketchum's jaw tightened. Hastings picked up Emma's report and read it, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Ketchum, do you have anything to say? Ketchum stood. I purchased that deed in good faith. If there's an error in the date or the ink, it's the surveyor's fault, not mine. I'm the victim here. The victim, Murphy said loudly from the back. That's rich. Hastings ignored him. Do you have a bill of sale? Proof of purchase? Ketchum hesitated. It was a private transaction. No receipt. Convenient, Emma muttered. But even if the deed is questionable, Ketchum continued, voice rising, Brennan still has no claim to that land. His homestead boundary is 50 yards from the spring. He's been using water that doesn't belong to him for years. It doesn't belong to you either, Sam said. Then who does it belong to? Ketchum shot back. Sam picked up the treaty map and held it high. The Apache People, by federal law, signed by Territorial Governor Goodwin in June of 1863. The room went silent. Hastings leaned forward. "May I see that?" Sam handed it over. The clerk unfolded it carefully, squinting at the faded ink, the hand-drawn boundaries, the signature at the bottom. He pulled a magnifying glass from his drawer and examined the seal. "This is authentic," he said finally. Ketchum's lawyer stood again. "Even if that map is real, it's irrelevant. The Apache were removed from this territory years ago. Any treaty rights they had are void." "No," Doc said. He stood leaning heavily on his cane. "They're not." All eyes turned to him. "Federal treaties don't expire just because a people are displaced," Doc continued. "The land designated as trust land remains trust land. That's the law." He pulled a worn book from his coat pocket, a law text, pages dog-eared and marked. "I looked it up. Trust land can only be dissolved by congressional action. No such action was taken for Section 12. Hastings took the book, flipped through it, and read. His eyebrows rose. Ketchum's lawyer opened his mouth, then closed it. "Furthermore," Doc said, "I have testimony regarding Mrs. Maria Brennan's last will and testament." He pulled out the paper Sam had found in the recipe book and handed it to Hastings. Maria Brennan, née Maria Helona, was Apache. She held hereditary rights to the spring through her grandmother's bloodline. In her will, she explicitly states that the spring is to be shared with her people in perpetuity, as guaranteed by treaty. Hastings read the will, slowly, carefully. Then he set it down and looked at Ketchum. "Mr. Ketchum, your deed is fraudulent. The ink analysis proves it. Even if it weren't, you have no legal right to claim trust land designated by federal treaty." He picked up a pen. "I'm voiding your claim, effective immediately." Ketchum surged to his feet. "You can't." "I can, and I just did." Hastings' voice was iron. "And if you file another false claim in this territory, I'll have you arrested for fraud. Do you understand?" Ketchum's face twisted. For a moment, Sam thought he might lunge across the desk. Then the man spun on his heel and stormed out, his lawyer scrambling to follow. The room erupted in applause. Sam stood there, not quite believing it, not quite feeling it yet. Emma was grinning. Murphy was clapping him on the back. Doc was wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. Hastings cleared his throat. "Mr. Brennan, regarding the spring, you say it belongs to the Apache people." "It does." "And you wish to formalize that?" Sam looked back at Naye. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes glistening. "Yes," Sam said. "I want it registered, legally protected, so no one can ever take it again." Hastings nodded. He pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and dipped his pen in ink. "Then let's make it official." He wrote for several minutes, scratching careful notes, referring to the treaty map and Maria's will. Finally, he looked up. "Sign here, Mr. Brennan, as executor of your late wife's estate, and here," he gestured to Naye, "as the designated representative of the Apache beneficiaries." Naye rose and limped forward. Sam handed her the pen. Their eyes met. "For Maria," he said quietly. "For all of us," Naye replied. She signed. Sam signed. Hastings stamped the document with his official seal and handed them each a copy. "The spring is now permanently designated as Apache Trust Land," Hastings said, "accessible to all tribal members and their descendants, protected by federal law." He looked at Sam. "And to you, Mr. Brennan, for the water rights necessary to maintain your homestead, as specified in Mrs. Brennan's will." Sam took the paper. The ink was still wet. It smelled like lanolin and lampblack and something he couldn't name. Victory, maybe, or just the beginning of something else. Outside, the sun was setting. Gold light poured through the windows, turning the dust motes to fire. Naye touched his arm. "Your wife's voice has been heard." Sam nodded. His throat was too tight to speak. They walked out of the land office together, into the warm evening air. The crowd parted for them. Some people smiled, others looked away, but no one said a word. The battle was over, and they had won. 3 weeks later, Sam stood in his yard and watched the windmill turn. The new gears sang, high and clean, no grinding, no hesitation. Water poured into the trough, cold and clear, more than enough for his stock and then some. Doc had helped him install the gears, so had Murphy and 2 other ranchers. They'd worked all morning, sweating under the sun, passing tools and jokes and easy conversation. When it was done, they'd stood back and watched the blades spin, and no one had said a word. They didn't need to. Now, in the golden afternoon light, Sam walked down to the spring. The trail was worn smooth from recent traffic. Naye had been teaching him to recognize the plants that grew here, yarrow and sage and desert marigold. She said Maria had known them all by name, had walked this path as a girl, before the treaties were broken and her people were driven away. He found Naye kneeling beside the water. Her leg had healed well, she moved without the splint now, though she still favored it when she thought no one was watching. She was planting something, small seedlings with delicate leaves. "What are those?" Sam asked. "Cottonwood," she said. "From the seed cache, these trees grew where my grandmother was born, where Maria's grandmother was born." She patted the soil around one seedling. "Now they will grow here." Sam knelt beside her. The earth was damp and rich, smelling of minerals and life. "How long before they're full grown?" 20 years, maybe 30, she smiled. "We will not see them reach the sky, but our children will." Our children. She didn't mean his children. She meant the children of this place, Apache, White, whoever came after, the ones who would grow up drinking from this spring, playing in the shade of these trees, never knowing how close it came to being stolen. "Maria would be proud," Sam said. "She is proud." Naye touched the beaded pouch at her waist, the one with the diamond pattern. "She sent me here to finish what she started, to make sure her voice was not lost." She looked at him. "But you did the hardest part. You spoke for her when she could not speak for herself." Sam's throat tightened. "I should have done it while she was alive." "Perhaps, but you did it when it mattered most." Naye stood, brushing dirt from her hands. "That is what she hoped for. That is what she trusted you to do." They walked back to the cabin together. Smoke rose from the chimney. Doc was inside, cooking supper. The old man had taken to stopping by most evenings, sharing a meal, teaching Sam the Apache words Maria had tried to teach him years ago. It was his way of making amends, his way of honoring the niece he'd failed. Emma came by too sometimes, brought books and newspapers, shared stories about Maria's school days, reminded Sam that his wife had touched more lives than he'd ever known. And Murphy had spread the word among the ranchers. 4 of them had signed a petition recognizing the spring as Apache trust land. 2 more had offered to donate lumber if Sam ever wanted to build a shelter there, a place for travelers to rest and water their horses. The community was changing, slowly, but changing. Inside the cabin, Doc was stirring a pot of stew. It smelled like venison and wild onions. He looked up when they entered. "What? Supper's almost ready? Sit down, both of you. You've been working all day?" They sat. Sam poured coffee, strong and bitter, the way Doc liked it. They ate in comfortable silence, passing the cornbread, refilling each other's cups. When the meal was done, Sam pulled out the willow rod he'd carved, the one he'd used to divine water, back before all this started. He'd shaped it into a pin now, smooth and balanced, with a steel nib fitted to the end. "I want to add something to the land registry," he said. "An addendum." Doc raised an eyebrow. "What kind of addendum?" "A dedication." Sam dipped the pen in ink and wrote on a clean sheet of paper, his handwriting careful and deliberate. "This spring is dedicated to the memory of Maria Helona Brennan, daughter of the Apache people, teacher, healer, and keeper of wisdom. May her voice be heard in the water song, and may all who drink here remember that mercy is stronger than law, and love is stronger than fear." He signed it, dated it. Then he looked at Naye. "Will you witness it?" She took the pen and signed her name in careful English letters. Below it, she added a line in Apache script, symbols Sam didn't know but could feel the weight of. Doc signed last, his hand shaking slightly, his eyes wet. "I'll file it tomorrow," Sam said. "Make it part of the official record." "Good," Doc said quietly. "Good." Outside, the sun sank lower. The windmill sang its endless song. The cottonwood seedlings stood fragile and green beside the spring, their roots reaching down into the earth, reaching for water that had flowed here for 1,000 years and would flow for 1,000 more. Sam stood on the porch, watching the light fade. Naye came to stand beside him. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. In the distance, a hawk called. The wind carried the scent of sage and dust and something else, something clean and new, like rain after a long drought. Maria's voice had been heard, and the water flowed free. That spring still flows, near 70 years on. Sam Brennan never got rich, didn't need to. He worked that land till his hands were too stiff to hold a hammer, till his eyes were too dim to read the recipe book he kept on the shelf. But he never kept quiet again. Not about Maria, not about where she came from, or who her people were, or what she'd taught him. Folks say the windmill turned till the day he died, sharing water with anyone who asked, no matter their color or creed or the stories they carried. Naye stayed on, built a small house near the spring, taught the old medicines to anyone willing to learn. Doc Maynard practiced another 20 years, and when he finally hung up his bag, he was buried beside his niece in the little cemetery on the hill. The headstone says, what it should have said all along: Maria Helona Brennan, beloved wife, daughter of two worlds, teacher of mercy. The cottonwoods grew tall. You can see them from the highway now, if you know where to look. A stand of green and all that red dust, marking the place where the spring runs cold and clear. They say on quiet mornings you can still hear that windmill singing, a hymn about water and forgiveness and the kind of love that outlasts paper. The beaded pouch hangs in the Territorial Museum now. Next to it, a willow pen, a magnifying glass, and a faded treaty map behind glass. School children come to see them. Teachers tell the story, and every year, on the first day of spring, someone plants a cottonwood seedling beside the water. Sam's buried next to Maria now, same headstone, her name carved in English and Apache both. He'd finally made her heard. And the water, it still flows free, just like she wanted.